Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. Hello, my friends. I hope this podcast finds you in good health and secure, safe. We continue with the Vimalakirti Sutra. Shakyamuni's teaching in this sutra using the personage of a respected, wealthy man in a village who is functioning as a bodhisattva, although he's a layperson, just like you and I. The point being is that a monk is anyone who's dedicated their lives to the study of Buddhism and the correct behaviors attending a Buddhist who is living amongst others and wanting to inspire their own path to Buddhahood, yes? So it's an interesting story. If certainly from my point of view, in Shakyamuni's skillful means, if you will, of recognizing that many people resist learning from those who seem to be in an accomplished, they perceive them in an authoritarian way, even though the teacher isn't being an authoritarian, they're simply being communicative of their expertise, right? Shakyamuni, certainly that. The great sage who has been enlightened, who has experienced and maintains enlightenment, Buddha. But for some, that would make him somebody to resist. As nonsensical as that sound, if you really think about the situation in the world today, from, well, every means of society, from school to governments to politicians to one another, brothers and sisters, right? If your older brother says he knows something, we've long left that era, if it ever truly existed, that your elders, your elder sibling, your parents, your grandparents, your great-grandparents are treated with reverence simply because they've been around so long, they have knowledge that you haven't had access to yet. So there's a filial, if you will, but even without that word, the charisma of that word, just a deep respect for the wisdom that comes from their duration, yes? Well, we don't live in that world anymore. Now it's flipped on its head. Oh, you say you know. Well, what do you know? Well, I'm trying to communicate it to you, but just because I'm trying to communicate, everybody takes offense. Why are you taking offense? Even if it's being offered, why are you taking it? Right? I learned a long time ago. And not only for my Buddhist practice, but just because of my cultural makeup and myriad reasons. But certainly Buddhism helped, without getting into all of my particulars. It's boring. that the more somebody would try to violate my sensibilities by yelling at me, yelling obscenities, or just yelling at me, just trying to intimidate me, I learned it wasn't about me. These people were simply expressing their trauma, their issues. And from that lens, the contortions of the face, the words they use, the broken sentences, and the spitting out their anger. Even now, as I talk about it, it's just hilarious. It makes me laugh. I know it's not about me. I don't even go through that step. I just observe them as being clowns. Let them be as offensive as they will. I'll top them. I remember in junior high, people saying things about my mother or my, whatever, the classic insults of the day. And I would triple down on them and go, yeah, blah, 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 blah. And it would shock them into silence. They didn't expect that. Oh, I was supposed to feel hurt and offended. Well, I'm a thinking, sentient mind. I know my own experience. Just because you say something crazy and outlandish, I don't go, oh, yeah, that's a possibility. Oh. This taking offense. It's so, I'm sorry, but it's stupid. It's just stupid. Why do we do that to ourselves? It's like we want to feel badly about fantasy. It doesn't even exist. Even worse, there's a kernel of truth in it. Oh, you're a bedwetter. Well, what if you are? Still laugh at that individual. Really? Really? That's what you're accusing me of? What? How ridiculous are you for trying to make me feel lesser human because of a human experience? You should be supportive of me. You should be, don't worry, in time it'll change. No, you're using it as a weapon to try to harm me. It doesn't harm me, right? You have to make a difference of perception between actual harm and blowhards. If you take that offense, you're the one harming you. All right. That's my rant for this morning. And you know what? I freely admit, I have to remind myself. I guess that's why I say these things. Because in a way, I try not to, I don't watch, I cut the cable, as they say, a long time ago. I don't watch network television, but if you get internet, whether it's Roku or Apple Stick or whatever the heck you use, the purveyors of marketing, trauma, clickbait, they find a way, right? And more they're infecting YouTube and everywhere else. So it's easy because it's constant. It's easy to it's like that layer you get on your teeth in the morning. Where does it come from? It just seems to stick. And you just got to get it out of there, right? Brush your teeth, rinse your mouth, whatever. It's like spiritually, like it wants to stick to us. And I like to watch videos on science and and the progress of the moon projects, and even in if you're interested in electronic cars or progress in mathematics or the JWST telescope or whatever your fascination, there's going to be YouTubers out there that are going to announce the negatives about those things, clickbait, right? It just seems to be impossible to live in a world where everyone is amazed. Look around us. We have a beautiful sunny day today, by the way, here. And I know there's fires all over California. There's electrical grid problems. There's shootings in 7-Elevens and grocery stores and schools. It is insane, the loss of integrity of humanity in this age of degeneration. It is the age of degeneration. Ta-da! But so much of it it's fetishized. Right? There are YouTubers, there are people who are focused on the amazement of black holes. I can't remember her name right now, but she's a great communicator. Sabine Hossenfelder, the physicist, German physicist, Austrian. Anyway, has a great channel. There are a lot of people out there talking about how amazing life is. But it's not like they're, cheerleaders. They rely on the fascination of the truth to be fascinating and inspiring. Whereas for every one of them, there seem to be 100,000 yuck. And it's just very hard to sidestep them because they're everywhere. But we have to know. And the more you chant, the more I chant, the more I seem to find bubbling through those positive voices, those inspired voices. Yeah? All the more reason why we need to remain focused. The more we need or remain focused on Buddha-ness, on amazement, on how incredible every moment of life is, the less affected, the less influenced, certainly influenced negatively, taking it on, taking offense, and I don't mean just somebody saying, you're fat. Brilliant. Right? Yep. Nailed it. But I mean the taking offense that's much more subtle. That leads us to downward thoughts, depression, self-doubt, right? When we see this plethora of negativity, we start thinking, what's wrong? What's wrong with the world? What's wrong with life? Where's the happiness? Right? We start to pile it on. But that's taking offense too. Remaining positive shouldn't take an effort to reach for. Remaining positive should be our central state. We're alive. For instance, I told you yesterday about something happening here in the Tupelo area of a young man who stole a twin-engine Cessna and was flying around broadcasting that he was going to crash the plane into city centers to kill a bunch of other people. This was a very distressed human being, obviously taking maximal offense to the point where it wasn't just his offense that he was reacting to. It was, he was projecting it, right? Making it causal on everyone else. You all have to go with me. Only a sentient human mind could get that aberrational about reality. that person was taking offense and multiplying it. He's guilty of doing that. He needs to learn and see, and this is the other part, is that remember I said I laugh at those who try to offend me. Well, to be brutally honest, sometimes I'm a little overwhelmed by the negativity everywhere in society, and it starts to weigh me down. And without realizing it, I'm not laughing at it. I have to turn that easy slide into taking offense into compassion. If I could just slip that into compassion and realize the negativity without owning it, personally, I mean, but owning it from a Buddha-ness perspective, well, ultimately it just sends me to my Butsudan, doesn't it? Because ultimately, there's nothing else you can do but forcibly invoke Buddha-ness so that you can send out those radiations of energy, of amazement, of positivity, of preciousness of life. Because that's what that man who stole that plane needs to experience. He needs to be reminded. I made a joke to Miss Sandra. She was talking about this event. I said, the thought comes to mind. I just want to look him straight in the eye and go, do you know how many millions of young men out there would love to have the opportunity to fly a plane? Do you realize what you have? If you changed your attitude, which would obviously alter your intent, what you would do with your mind. Little noises, I don't know if you can hear them, but the birds are playing on the metal roof, and yeah. Anyway, squirrel. Anyway, but do you see what I'm saying? This poor tortured man is torturing himself. He doesn't even realize the glorious opportunity he has to just hop into a twin-engine Cessna and fly around for a while. This is what human beings do. We attach ourselves to unreasonable desires. The desires are fun, they're great, but why do they have to bring us down? Why can't they exalt our very opportunity of life? This is what Buddhism says is every moment you should be looking. It's so brief. Why not have every moment of your life be glorious, amazing? Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. Let's get back to the sutra here. Sorry, I tend to rant lately. The Buddha then said to Purna Maitrayana Putra. This one will be a little shorter though. You must go visit Vimalakirti and ask about his illness. What do you think Purna's going to say? He says to the Buddha, World-honored one, I am not competent to visit him and ask about his illness. But of course you are. You are a sentient mind. There's no difference between your sentient mind and Vimalakirti's mind, just as there's no difference between your mind and Buddha. This is the lesson, and Shakyamuni's having to offer it vis-a-vis a character, because people won't accept, as they look upon Shakyamuni as the Buddha, that they can ever emulate him. They'll just follow along his program in hopes that someday, somewhere, not that it's achievable, it just makes life better. But that's not Buddhism. That's not Buddhism. That is not Buddhism. Buddhism is about your enlightenment here, now, this moment, instantly. Because it's already there, you simply need to awaken your earthbound experience to it. Realize it. Like so many things in life, yeah? Do you remember the moment you first discovered your sexuality? It was earth-shattering, wasn't it? Well, it was always there, it just needed to manifest. Same with Buddha-ness. Manifest it. How do you manifest it? Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. And yet, since he's not competent, he answers and justifies why. Why am I not competent? Oh, let me get ahead of you, Shakyamuni. Let me tell you why. Because, you're Buddha after all. You're omnipotent. You know everything. So you can't know this, though. Let me tell you. 'Cause I'm smarter than you. I know why I'm not competent. Okay, let's hear this. I mean, could you look at this conversation from different angles? It's pretty silly. And yet, it's very, very critical to understanding how the mind works, how the ego operates to obfuscate our enlightenment. The monkey mind constantly wants to be in control. You're in control. You can let your monkey mind be in control, falling through the branches, right? Because I recall how once, under a tree in the great forest, I was expounding the law to some monks who had just begun their study of the way. Okay, so you were, to the best of your abilities, teaching Shakyamuni's teachings to a bunch of monks, people who were starting out in the practice. They still didn't have basic concepts and so forth, right? At that time, Vimalakirti approached and said to me, Purna, you should first enter into meditation and observe a person's mind before expounding the law to that person. Now, if you haven't heard this before, you've heard it in other forms probably, that before you discuss Buddhism with a fellow Buddhist, a non-Buddhist, somebody who's curious about Buddhism, anyone, the first thing to do is get your mind straight. Chant. If possible, chant with that interlocutor or interlocutors. In other words, the others that you're going to have a conversation with. So that all of you have your mind, your gohanzen, open. So that your words, whatever they are, because words are tricky, what we want to communicate needs to come through our action of compassion with one another, Sangha, regardless of how well-formed or eloquent we are with our words, because the words aren't doing it. If the words did it, everyone would be Buddhist. Seriously. It is the effort, the compassion, the intent, the attitude. Those are the things that communicate between us. But we silly, ego-minded humans, when you say the words in that order, are you saying that and we just start hacking across the recipe without ever tasting the flavor of the food? This is a constant refrain in expedient means, in teaching. And here it is. Before you start teaching these beginners, you need to be able to assess their need, where their minds are. You can't just start programmatically going, okay, here's the first book of Buddhism, Four Noble Truths, and just go on your way, basically reciting what you think you know. And you don't know that the people you're talking to have any need or curiosity or understanding of what you're just programmatically going. You need to address their being, their minds. Where are you right now? What is it you're hoping to gain? It should be more like an interview. And then with your compassion and what you know, offer some direction. Because your words aren't the answer. They need to find their own words to find the answer. Always comes back to this, self-enlightenment. You can't grab a bucket of Buddha and stuff it in somebody's ear. You can't. You can share your experience, but even that is kind of a short circuit. You have to reach into this other person's life and allow them to create an opportunity for them to absorb from their own Buddha mind, which is already there. Shh, secret. So Vimalakirti is going to point this out to Purna. One does not put rotten food in a precious vessel. You must determine what thoughts are in the minds of these monks. Do not treat precious lapis lazuli as though it were mere glass. You have precious knowledge. You have precious information. It's personal to you. You've inculcated your perceptions, your awakened perceptions, into your daily life. Until the people around you who are asking dialoguing with you have obviated their search, their parameters, you really don't know how to address them. If somebody is dying of thirst and you keep stuffing them with steak, you're not really helping them. They might choke on that damn steak. They just need water. Vimalakirti continues, you seem unable to understand the basic capacities of living beings. You must not try to rouse their aspirations by preaching the doctrines of the lesser vehicle. So what does that mean? Again, Purna just follows the program. Well, these are the early teachings, so let's start there. You're not going to raise inspiration from everyone by starting at. Sometimes people need to know where you are right now. The time and the capacity, right? Is missing that whole lesson. Do not inflict injury on those who are without wounds. Don't treat people like they're stupid. They all have Buddha nature, remember? If you want them to travel the great highway, do not throw them a little bypath. Or don't show them a little bypath. Do not try to fit the vast ocean into one ox's hoofprint. Do not regard the light of the sun as if it were a firefly's glimmer. Now, this is all a little bit, you could say, Purna could take offense here, yeah? Vimalakirti is just trying with words to explain the fallacy of the way Purna is attempting to share Buddhism with young monks, young in their practice. Purna, these monks long ago set their minds on the great vehicle, but later they forgot their original intentions. What's that a reference to? Everyone has the Buddha nature inherent. The whole universe is from this energy We have to treat others with the respect and the dignity that they too have what we actively invoke every day. They too have that Buddha nature. We can't treat them like they're not there yet. We just have to show them that they can do it for themselves. It's a very different approach, isn't it? Why do you use the doctrines of the lesser vehicle to teach and guide them? Those may have been necessary for you to attain what you have attained thus far. But that doesn't mean everybody's going to learn that way. Understand what they need to know. Ask them. Consider their mind. Right? As I see it, the wisdom of the lesser vehicle is trite and shallow. Lesser vehicle being Hinayana, right? Like the understanding of a blind person, it is incapable of discerning whether the capacities of living beings are keen or dull. You're treating them as though they're unable. That's not a good starting point. Treat them as though they are able and simply need to know, and the questions will come from that, and you can tailor your assistance, not your didactic authoritarian ego, but your bodhisattva compassionate assistance to help them realize on their own terms what it is enlightenment. A good lesson for any of us who are concerned about how do I help others. I don't know how to do that. Well, because when you say that, you're thinking from your ego. I don't know how to read well. I don't know. I don't remember all these teachings. Blah, blah, blah. I've heard it all, my friends. It's not about the words. It's about genuine, caring, acceptance, assistance, love. At that time, Vimalakirti entered into samadhi, right there on the spot. He following his own advice, making it possible for these monks to become aware of their former existences. In other words, just by invoking his Buddha state, his bodhisattva mind, these others were influenced by this amazing capacity for compassion, and they started to seek it for themselves. That's the whole thing. In the past, under 500 Buddhas, they had planted the roots of virtue and set their minds on the attainment of Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi. Of course, not literally. This is another explanatory set of words to explain this pre-existing phenomena that is in everything. And at that moment, they were suddenly able to regain their original spirit of resolve. He gave them confidence. I can do this. I can awaken my Buddha nature, my Buddha mind. They didn't need to hear all the programs and precepts and privations and blah, blah, blah of Hinayana. That wasn't helping them. They just needed the confidence to know they could do what they already are. With that, the monks bowed their heads at Vimalakirti's feet. Then he preached the law for them, ensuring that they would never again regress in their striving for Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi. And I thought to myself that a voice hearer should never preach the law when he cannot discern people's inner capacities. Therefore, I say I'm not competent to visit Vimalakirti and inquire about his illness. So I'm just too stupid. No, you're acting like it, but you missed the lesson. You got a really wonderful lesson there from somebody who deeply cares about you. He wasn't ridiculing you. He wasn't just chastising you for the purpose of embarrassing you. He was assisting you, somebody who's educated, who should know better, and reminding you, this is a good friend. Oh, but you're not competent. The Buddha then said, well, Mahakatyayana, Mahakatyayana. You must go visit Vimalakirti and ask about his illness. He's not wasting any time. All right, you've convinced me. Let me go to you. By repetition, Shakyamuni is hoping, I think, that these others who've responded with such conviction about why they're lesser beings will start to see a pattern and awaken themselves to what need be done. But Mahakatyayana said to the Buddha, world-honored one, I'm not competent to visit him and ask about his illness. Why? Because I recall how in the past the Buddha was once summing up for all the monks the essential points in his preaching of the law. Later I expounded and elaborated on what he had said, discussing the meaning of the terms impermanence and suffering and emptiness and non-ego and tranquil extinction or nirvana. And at that time, Vimalakirti approached me and he said, Mahakatyayana, you must not try to expound on the true nature of phenomena when your mind is concerned with distinctions such as birth or extinction. For in the end, all phenomena know neither birth or extinction. This is the meaning of impermanence. So here you are defining all these terms and words, but you haven't grasped the meaning, and therefore you're not teaching, spreading the meaning. You're just defining words. What are you, a dictionary? The 5 components are wide open, empty, nothing arising in them. This is the meaning of suffering. The attaching to these words and concepts is the very problem that we're trying to escape, liberate ourselves from by knowing these tendencies and conditions. The various phenomena ultimately have no existence. This is the meaning of emptiness. Ego and non-ego are not two different things. This is the meaning of non-ego. It's a tricky thing in Buddhism to use language to try to get understanding about a concept. When I say ego, we all think of some kind of image of self, and a guarded image of self, a propagating image of self. Yeah, some form of those kind of words, ego. And then when we adopt the term non-ego, we think, well, we stop propagating that idea of self. But ask yourself, who's doing the propagating of that non-propagating? Oh, yeah, that's the ego. See, to understand the idea of non-ego is to subvert the idea of it becoming, formation, right? Keep going back to that. Shakyamuni talking about cessation of the formations of those ideas. So when we negate something, we further solidify its existence. This is the conundrum of words, language, even perception. Are you selfish? No, I'm not selfish. Why are you saying that? Are you selfishly trying to cling to the idea of non-selfishness? Does that make you better? What is better? Who is better? It's all ego. It's all self. See, this is where the mind, twisting the melon, yes? But if you just let go of the definition to experience the liberation of being in this moment, loving, and that everything is equal in that same process, you eschew all of these conditions, and you really actually start to experience life unconditioned. It's not an easy thing, although we can do it when we what? Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. We do it. In that instant, we do it. The various phenomena ultimately have no existence. This is the meaning of emptiness. Ego and non-ego are not two different things. This is the meaning of non-ego. Phenomena have never been so to begin with, and hence will never cease to be so. This is the meaning of tranquil extinction. It's a liberation, a letting go. When he expounded the law in this way, the minds of the monks were able to gain emancipation. That is why I say I am not competent to visit Vimalakirti and ask about his illness. The Buddha then asked to Aniruddha, you must go visit, right? He just moves on to another. But Aniruddha said to the Buddha, World Honor One, I'm not competent. Why? Because I now recall I was walking around to stretch my legs when a Brahmin king named Austere Purity, accompanied by 10,000 Brahmins, wow, all emanating beams of pure light, came to the place where I was. Bowing his head in obeisance, he questioned me, saying, Aniruddha, how far can this divine eye of yours see? Aniruddha was known among the 10 major disciples as foremost in divine sight. I replied, Sir, I can see this whole 1,000,000,000-fold world, the Buddha land of Shakyamuni, as though I were peering down at the mirobalan fruit in the palm of my hand. Do you see the trouble in that statement? At that time, Vimalakirti approached and said to me, Aniruddha, this sight possessed by the divine eye, is it conditioned in nature, or is it unconditioned? If it is conditioned in nature, then it is the same as the 5 transcendental powers of the non-Buddhist teachers. You're no different. And if it is unconditioned, then it is uncreated, and hence is incapable of seeing anything. There's that twist again, melon bending, right? At that time, I remained silent. But the Brahmins, hearing his words, gained what they had never had before. At once they made obeisance to him and said, In this world, who possesses the true divine eye? Vimalakirti replied, Only the Buddha, the world-honored one, is able to acquire the true divine eye. He is constantly in a state of samadhi and can see all the Buddha lands because he does not see in terms of duality. There is not this and that. There is only the process, moment to moment, being. Thereupon the Brahma king, Austere Purity, and his retinue of 500 Brahma deities all set the 500. I thought there were 1,000. Anyway, all set their minds on the attainment of Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi. They bowed at Vimalakirti's feet, and then suddenly were seen no more. See, these are all mental exercises. So all of these apparitions, personifications, these questions that these individuals have experienced, they're their own mental doubts. Forms of a dream of being inadequate. Therefore, I say I'm not competent to visit Vimalakirti and ask. So the Buddha then says to Upali, you must go, ... But Upali, of course, isn't competent. Why? Because once in the past, 2 monks had violated the rules of conduct and were feeling ashamed of themselves, but did not dare ask the Buddha what to do. So they came to me and said, Upala, we have violated the precepts and are truly ashamed, but we do not dare ask the Buddha what to do. Please free us from our doubts and remorse and tell us how we can be excused from blame. You and I, because we practice the Lotus Sutra, we could answer that question, couldn't we? Who's to blame? What is blame? What are you excusing? What do you feel so guilty about? What offense are you taking? Even if it's you offending you, what are you doing? That's all egotistical self-manipulation. It's obvious in the question. Let's see. I explained to them, Upali, to them, how one goes about gaining pardon in court according to the law. Here we go, reciting texts, rules, precepts. But at that time, Vimalakirti approached me and said, Upali, do not make the offense these monks have committed even worse than it is. You should go about wiping out their doubts and remorse at once and not trouble their minds any further. Enlighten your mind. Return to Buddha, your Gohanzon, your enlightened self. By jumping through hoops and trying to figure out, you're staying mired in the things that are creating doubt and fear and all of that other crap in you. It's all samsaric crud. Just change your mind, and it's gone. Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. Why do I say this? Because their offense, by its nature, does not exist either inside them or outside or in between. It's something they chose to experience in some moment. It's gone. It no longer exists unless you drag it into this moment and choose to stay mired in suffering. It's what most people do. As the Buddha has taught us, when the mind is defiled, the living being will be defiled. When the mind is pure, the living being will be pure. So just be pure. Just enlighten, awaken your Buddha mind. As the mind is, so will be the offense or defilement. The same is true of all things, for none escape the realm of suchness. He's just defined the word suchness again. Suchness is a moment by moment choice, invocation, experience. And if you want to drag defiled thoughts into this moment, then this moment is defiled. It's so simple. Now, Upali, if one gains emancipation from delusions through an understanding of the nature of the mind, does any defilement remain? No, he replied. Vimalakirti said, in the same way, when all living beings gain an understanding of the nature of the mind, then no defilement exists. Upali, deluded thoughts are defilement. Where there are no deluded thoughts, that is purity. Topsy-turvy thinking is defilement. Where there is no topsy-turvy thinking, that is purity. Belief in the self is defilement. Where there is no such belief, that is purity. See, self is this construct of permanence, of I appear this way, I behave these ways, these parameters, this finger, this body, these eyes, this is me. But if in your mind you perceive your being as a moment-to-moment manifestation of energies, then there is no reference material to point to an I. You're just being. You're a consciousness witnessing your own experience as well as everything around you as a moment-to-moment happening. There's no room in that to construct a self. You're a witness, not an ego. You're not dragging parameters along with you. Does that make sense? Upali, all phenomena are born and pass into extinction, never enduring, like phantoms, like lightning. They do not wait for one another or linger for an instant. All phenomena are the product of deluded vision, like dreams, like flames, like the moon in the water or an image in a mirror, born of deluded thoughts. One who understands this is called a keeper of the precepts. One who understands this is called well liberated. At this, the two monks exclaimed, "Superlative wisdom! Upali could never match this. He who is, quote, foremost in observing the precepts, end quote, could never speak like this." And I added, leaving the thus come one aside, no voice hearer or bodhisattva has ever commanded such eloquence in apt exposition. See how clear and penetrating his wisdom is? Yeah, Upali, I see Vimalakirti is very well knowledgeable, eloquent, able to discuss what it is to awaken Buddha. At that time, the doubts and remorse of the two monks were wiped away, and they set their minds on the attainment of Anuttara Samyak Sambuddhaya, vowing that, quote, "we will enable all living beings to gain eloquence such as this," end quote. Therefore, I say, I'm not competent to visit Vimalakirti and ask about his illness. What exactly is it about your competence that doesn't allow you to be compassionate, loving, caring, supportive? What exactly are you not competent of? Explaining it? Writing a book about it? Perhaps so. It's not required. It's a requirement you're making up in your own mind to stop you. These are your doubts, and you need to regain your confidence. So what do you think Buddha does? The Buddha then said, or turns to, Rahula. And I think we'll talk to Rahula in the next video. It's really interesting, I think, this exposition on the gymnastics of the ego. Because that's what we're reading here. How many reasons can you come up with for stopping you in anything? Isn't this what we always do? Our tendency to do when we're not sure of ourselves? There is no self to be sure of. There is only Buddha. Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. From this vantage point, this moment's perception, everything is real, everything is unattached, amazing and precious. Everything else, I would say, is an opportunity for you to realize that it's just part of the process. Something to witness without being responsible for making, owning, keeping. That just retards you. And I say that in the idea of time. Because time, when time stands still, to use that common phrase, then there is no time. There is no space. There is no thing. And that is not where we live, where we are being. We are being moment to moment, time, 3,000 realms in each thought, single moment. Everything's about time. And if you're not moving with time in an instantiation of timelessness, just following the process of manifestation of potential, then you are actively trying to reach back and anchor yourself on a place where you no longer are. This is the delusion of attachments. I hope that made sense to you. I hope this was inspiring to you. This is the reason for this channel. Please like, subscribe. We're almost at 1,000, which is a benchmark. I would really like to reach that. Thank you for your support. Patrons, those of you who can help financially, or as Reggie did with Candle, I keep singling him out. Apologies. But the monitor I'm using here is from John. You guys know who you are. I don't want to play romper room here. For one reason, predominantly, is that just feeds the ego, and that's not what this practice is about. But I do want you to feel rewarded. Not that I can provide that for you. All I can do is tell you how much I appreciate your practice, your resolve, and your participation. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Keep doing it. It's amazing. And I will see you in the next one. Okay? Great. Bye for now.